Okay. Uh, in the first session, we talked primarily about the theological foundation, the basis where you're praying from. I'd like for this session, the second session each time, to be a little more application, a little more about, okay, how do we do this? And so in this time, I want us to talk about prayer as conversation and learning to be better conversationalists. Whether it's in your as you go praying, your continual consciousness where you're praying prayers that start with and, or whether it's the appointment type praying where you're having special times where you meet the Lord for certain purposes in prayer. And I want to talk about it in light of a conversation. I've discovered that people who are not good conversationalists with each other are often not very good conversationalists with God. So just some practical things about what makes you a good conversationalist. If you're going to talk with someone, there's certain skills that you can develop that could be very, very helpful. First of all, in any meaningful conversation, we respond according to the subject or the purpose of the conversation. For instance, sometimes in a conversation, you're aware that they have done something positive toward you. They've been a blessing to you. They are a blessing to you, or maybe they've given you something. So it's just appropriate in the middle of the conversation when you are aware of that to say, by the way, thank you so much for what you've done. And thank you for who you are. And thank you for how you've influenced me. Thank you for what you did for my kids, or thank you for what you did for our church. Thank you for what it's just there. You're aware of it, so you respond. Sometimes in the middle of a conversation, if there's real relationship in a conversation, there's petition. While we're talking, is there any way, could I ask you this? Is there any way you could help me do so-and-so? I really don't know what I'm doing in this whole thing, and I think you have wisdom there. Do you have anything to say to me about that? Or, I'm working on this thing that I feel like it's the right thing to do, but I don't have the resources. Could you tell me the people resources or the financial resources or wherever? Could you help me that? It's just natural in conversation. I double dog dare you to just check out your conversation, see how many times you petition. And you don't feel like, you're going with a list like, hey, come here, 10 things I want. It's not a grocery list. It's a response to what's going on in the conversation. And by the way, God is not offended at our petition. He absolutely loves for us to ask. He said, John 16, he's talking to the disciples, he said, up until now, you've asked nothing. Ask in my name that your joy might be full. He delights in our petition because it reflects our dependence upon him. It reflects our awareness that he is the source of everything that we need and have. And so petition is a great honoring part of our conversation. I'm honored when people trust me enough to ask me for stuff. I'm embarrassed when I don't have it to give them. And God will never be embarrassed. And the only reason he won't give it to you is because he loves you too much to mess you up with it at that time. And he'll give you something better. I think about Zachariah and Elizabeth praying all those years for a boy. Any boy. Just give us a boy. Or a child. Any kind of child. Just give us a child. 2-legged, 4-legged. No, you don't care. Just give us a baby. She's barren. She hadn't had a baby. And they loved God, and they prayed, and they prayed, and they prayed. And, God didn't give it to them. And I can imagine how many times she went to bed at night and go, oh, God, What's wrong with me? Why won't you hear my prayer? I thought you loved me, and you've been good to Israel, and I know you answer prayer. I've read all of David's prayers. I got them memorized, and you answered to me. Why won't you answer my prayer? And finally, when it came, the deal was, you're not just going to have a baby. You're going to have a boy, and he ain't going to be four-legged. He's going to introduce the Messiah to the world. Like, that was a little bit more than I'd asked for. So, sometimes in the middle of conversation, there's such trust and such joy that the most appropriate thing you can do is be quiet. Is that not true? If you've been married over 10 years and y'all are still happy, I can tell you this, there are lots of times y'all are gathered and don't say a cotton-picking word. You just want to be there. You know, a smile, a glance, maybe. Just quiet. There's this mistaken impression that to talk to God, you always got to be moving your mouth. Sometimes silence is a wonderful thing. So knowing that, would there be anything wrong with a person saying, you know what, a part of my conversation with God includes silence. I think I'm going to schedule some time with Him for just that. Many of the saints in history have, and they call that the discipline of silence. Now, sadly, for many it has turned into a leverage to try to get God's blessing. If I'll follow this discipline, then God's obligated to bless me. No, that's not the purpose of the appointment. That's seeing God as useful, as a tool to try to leverage. But just realizing that there is a relationship there and that nothing really needs to be said at the moment, just to be quiet. What about you ever having a conversation with somebody and they say something that's profound, or at least it requires you to think about it a little bit? So instead of spouting off, you go, And you make a little mental check in your mind. It's like, as soon as this is over, I need to think about that. And that's called meditation. Would there be anything wrong in a person's life who enjoyed that in spontaneous conversation, who actually said, that was so good, I think I'm just going to set aside some times for that? God, could we have an appointment that maybe Tuesday from whatever to whatever? I want to meditate. You have said some things in your word that I hadn't quite got figured out yet. I want to think about it. I want to ponder it. I want to roll it over. I want to ask questions about it. I want to meditate. Part of prayer. It can be a part of the as you go. But usually meditation has to be planned, because it happens better when you're undistracted. So, through the years, the saints of God have come up with a discipline of meditation. Again, it can be misused, can be misunderstood. I'm going to meditate, and that makes me more spiritual. Not necessarily. It probably will make you more humble, because when you meditate and you understand truth, you realize how ignorant you were before you meditated on it. But you won't be conscious of your superiority in any way. What about just conversation? You're talking with someone, you're with them, they do something or they say something or something happens while you're together, that you whip out your smartphone and you go, I'm going to write that down. I don't want to lose that. That's good. Every once in a while, it'll be something you said. It's not proud to acknowledge that. I mean, every once in a while I'm talking to somebody and I'll say something, I go, whoa, that's good. That didn't come from me. I'm going to write that down. I need to think about that. I don't even know if I believe that, but that's good. Well, through the years, saints have said, when I'm with God, there's some things that are said that I need to write down. It's called journaling, or keeping a diary, keeping a spiritual diary journal. Can happen as you go, but usually will produce some special times when you set aside time to say, okay, I want to write this down and whatever. Then there comes a time when it is time to speak out in a conversation. It's time to, it's like on the basis of what we've been talking about, I just got something to say. So we speak. We declare. Declare to God. You declare to yourself. As I talked about earlier, you can declare to your own soul. You declare it. You confess it. It's just confession. You speak to the mountain, and it moves. You speak to the sea, or you speak to God. You just talking. I've discovered that God is not overwhelmed when you have some of your deep questions. He's not afraid of them. And in fact, I have a good friend who uses this phrase a lot, and I've experienced it my whole life, but I started using the phrase, and that is, I am with God in the question. Somebody will ask me about something, and I go, I'm in the question. In other words, I've sent in my request, and I hadn't got it all back yet, but we're in the midst of the discussion. And I've asked and I've heard some things, but I hadn't got it ready. I'm not ready to declare anything, but I'm in the question. It can be a part of your meditation too, but it's a part of the whole thing. And then there comes a time in a conversation where, based on what's going on in the relationship, there just needs to be action. You just may want to hug them, or you may want to, let's go do something. I know we talk so much about grace and the goodness of God and how we don't do any works to earn things, that sometimes we get the idea that Christians can't do anything. Well, I don't think you can relate to Jesus much without wanting to do something, because he's always doing something. But you're not doing it to gain anything from him. You're not doing it to get closer. You're doing it with him. And that's a natural part of conversation. If all you do is talk to somebody and y'all never do anything, that's not very productive conversation. So there is a time for action. So it's just trying to take the ethereal out of this so much and just say, if prayer is to any degree conversing with God, if it is my part of the conversation with God, then a thing that I can practice, that I can get better at, that I can develop better skills at, is my conversation. And knowing that it's conversation means that I don't have to do it all the same way. I know there's always a danger in analyzing your prayer, and certainly analyzing somebody else's, because then that just kind of puts the pressure on. It's like, did I pray right? Well, we had a friend growing up in the Baptist group. One of our heroes was Miss Bertha Smith, who was a missionary to China and had been in the great East African revival and Chinese revival, and Chinese, not East African. And they had made her come home way before she wanted to because she had to retire. So she came home, and so we were always honored to get her to be around because she'd been in that great revival, and she was a great saint. But she was real stickler on praying and praying right. And it was always fun if you weren't the victim to be around when she corrected some of the higher authorities in the Baptist convention. I mean, and it didn't matter who you were. If you prayed with her and you didn't pray right, she'd stop you right in the middle of the prayer. And so, I mean, it made you on your P's and Q's. In fact, it made me not want to pray at all. It's like, I'm not praying. But I remember one time, Betsy and I were with her and a bunch of others up in a youth camp in Falls Creek, Oklahoma. And a lot of the big preachers and stuff were there. And so I would call these names, but no use in embarrassing them. Those of you who knew anything about Baptists would know them. But one of the guys had just bought him a set of tapes back then, probably reel to reel. I don't know, but on getting better. And so he was talking about that, and he was praying, "Oh Lord," he said. We're all kneeling now and deal, of course. And she would she was 80 something years old at the time, or 90 something. Anyway, she could stay on her knees for like hours, and she'd bend on her knees, and she would sit straight up on her knees, like I mean, when I'm on my knees, I'm just rolling, I'm writhing, I'm rubbing, and I'm moving, I'm shuffling, and she's just praying. And this guy said, "Oh Lord, I just want to be better." She went, "Whoa." She said, "Son, God doesn't want you any better. He wants you dead." So he started over. "Oh Lord," he said, "help me to die." She said, "He's not going to help you to die. He died in your place. You need to accept it from Jesus and consider yourself dead." After 2 or 3 more, he said, "Oh Lord, I don't know how to pray." My brother was praying. My brother, y'all know TD, many of you do. He's 16 years older than I. He's pastor of the First Baptist Church of Hurst, Texas at the time, and whatever. Anyway, he's praying in front of her. He was, "Now, Lord, we're praying for this meeting tonight, and we want the people to come, Lord, but the weather's bad, and just pray that in the middle of this bad." But she said, "Wait, Brother TD, God does not need a weather forecast from you." If there's anything you want to ask him, ask. If there's anything you want to tell him, tell him. But let's don't get into the weather forecast. Anyway, she was a sweetheart. She came, this is by the way, she came to the meeting that I was in down in Dothan, Alabama in the early 80s where a revival was breaking out and all kind of stuff. And Baptist preachers were casting demons out of Baptist preachers and all that kind of stuff. And she loved it. She'd come in there, and of course we did it in the back room back then. And she'd just sit up on the table, and she'd just look, and she'd go, "I've been waiting my whole life to see this." She had a great time. I got a letter from her that I actually framed and put in my office. It's in my office today. Just a letter from Miss Bertha. Anyway. I did pray with her, and somehow or another I never got rebuked. But I was thinking more about Miss Bertha than I was about God. So I'm not trying to put that kind of analysis on you, but I'm saying it's okay to examine your prayer and make sure you're learning how to be a better conversationalist. It'll help you with each other as well as with God. But there's several things about being a good conversationalist with people or with God, and one of them is you have a real interest in another's thoughts and feelings. I mean, none of us like to talk to somebody who wants to talk about themselves and their feelings and wants to convey to us everything, their opinion and whatever, and they're not interested in my thoughts. And I have to admit, there have been times when I went to God in prayer to have a conversation with God, and I really didn't care much about what He was thinking or what He was feeling at the time, because I had a panic on my mind and I was thinking about what was going on with me and how I felt and what I thought, and I spent my time telling Him all that as if He didn't know, which I'm sure He was okay with the therapy. Yeah, it was just therapy. But so showing a real interest in another's thoughts and feelings. And I would encourage that in prayers like, Father, I've come to you today because I think you kind of know more than I do, and I'm interested in what are you thinking? I'll tell you this, when you go to God and you're full of guilt and condemnation, if you'll just go to God and say, God, what are you thinking? It won't be long before you won't be thinking about all the stuff you've done wrong and what's wrong and the shame with it. He'll be talking to you about something else. I dare you to try that this week. I've actually tried, I didn't realize I do, but I've almost rebuked God for saying, that is not what I came to talk to you about. I came to talk to you about my sin and my shame and how bad I am and how limited I am, and I won't talk about that. And so I'm listening now. What do you got to say? And the Lord starts taking you and start talking about destiny and blessings. Like, no. I want to talk about shame. Many of you done that? If y'all not honest now, you can't pray at all. Okay. Secondly, invested time speaks of valued relationship. As you're having conversation with somebody, the very fact that you're willing to invest time and that they're willing to invest time with you reveals a valued relationship. People say to me, I just don't have time to pray. I don't have time to read the Bible. I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time. That bothers me a little bit because invested time shows that you value the relationship. And so everything shouldn't be a by the way or on the way or I'm praying while I'm getting gas or I'm praying. Yeah, do all of that. But there should be some time of invested relationship, invested time. Another thing that makes good conversationalists, I think you would agree with this, is when people show gratitude for the time and the conversation. It always blesses me somebody when they've asked for some time and we speak and they say, thank you so much for your time. That makes me want to talk to them again. They realize that I have given them something that cannot be replaced. I mean, if I give them money, that can be replaced. But if I give you my time, I'm giving you something that cannot be replaced. Those minutes are never coming back. And so when you appreciate that, that makes me appreciate you. Well, I wonder if that might not be a good attitude as we go to the Lord in planned prayer of gratitude for the time in the conversation. And then all of us would appreciate in conversation clear and concise communication. Nobody likes to talk to a blabbermouth, using way too many words, useless words. I don't know if we do that in prayer because we're nervous or what, but there have been lots of corporate prayer meetings killed because somebody just wouldn't quit talking. Yappity, 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 and using words, saying the same thing over and over again. And Lord, and just, and Lord, and this, and then Lord, and this, and then, we've already prayed about that. We pray about it again. It's like, are you listening? Mr. Jones just prayed about that really well. Could you just said amen and not gone back over that whole thing again? And, and giving God weather reports and stuff like that. It's just, now I know this is a discipline. It's a thing of disciplining your mind to think through what you want to say and say it. Okay, so I want to suggest something that, we free worship people don't like. It's not a bad thing to write out your prayer. Oh, no. We've gone back into legalism. No. When I want to say something really well, I write it out. Now, I may not take it with me to say it, but I've written it out so at least I know the words I want to use to express what I'm saying. Many of you know that for several years I've tried to encourage a bunch of young pastors in preaching, and so we had classes on it and whatever. And one of the things I required him to do, Chris was in that group, I want you to write out your sermon. Now, I don't want you to get up there and read it, but I want you to write it out. I want you to think through what you're saying so at least at one time in your life you said it right. Now, you can get up and ad lib and add to it and all that you want to, but you need to think through what you're saying and use as few words as you possibly can, because every time, listen to me, every time you repeat yourself in a conversation, you diminish the value of your words. Instead of multiplying it, you divide them. So, again, it's like, well, I'm never going to pray again, Dudley. It's like, these are things we can get better at. They're skills that make us better conversations with each other and better with God. And then another thing about a good conversationalist that makes me want to talk to somebody a second time is that they remember what we talked about last time. Now, I'm accepting all of you over 65, but you don't remember anything. I mean, my wife and I have to remind each other what we were talking about. Not really, but no, what I'm talking about is, have you ever been with somebody and you have this deep conversation and you talk and you think, man, they asked me and I told them and we discussed it and we came up with a conclusion. And next time you see them, they go, oh yeah, what about so-and-so? It's like, we already talked about that. Yeah, what we're going to do about that? We already decided you were going to do this and I was going to do this and this was going to happen. Oh, really? I don't remember. Well, guess what? We're not going to talk anymore. I'm wasting my time. Okay, put that over in your conversation with God. Do you write down what God says to you? Do you put it in any kind of way so you can remember it? He appreciates that. Like you value what he said, and it gives you something upon which to pray next time, and the conversation to keep going. And you can pray some of those and prayers. There's some conversation killers. One is distractions. I mean, nobody likes to talk to somebody that's totally distracted. It just drives me up the wall for me to be talking to somebody and they won't look me in the eyes at least every once in a while. Have you ever talked to somebody that just look past you all the time? They're talking to you and they're going. Well, if you don't want to talk to me, fine. I like silence. I don't need you to talk to me. But if you're going to talk to me and look at me while you're talking to me. We have a father-daughter coming up. By the way, there's some brochures out there on the thing. If you hadn't been, if you've got a daughter 15 and up, somebody they ought to be at the father-daughter in February. I pick up that brochure and get registered. One of the things that daughters tell us when we do surveys out there, what would you like to change about your relationship with your dad? I won't tell you all the things to say, but let me tell you what's always one of the top two. When we're together, I wish he would put away his cell phone. That was a surprise to me. I mean, I knew it would be in there somewhere because nobody likes to live with distraction. But year after year after year, that's always in the top few. When he's with me, I wish he'd be with me. I wonder if the Lord ever feels that way. So distraction, cell phone, other thoughts, here's another thing that gets me every once in a while. I'll be talking to somebody, they go, while you were saying that, I was thinking about so-and-so. I do that, but I'm not going to tell you I do that. I mean, right? I mean, most of us can think on 1 or 2 or 3 tracks. Some of you can think on more than that, but don't tell them. No, don't do it. And then I've already talked about the treating the conversation too casual. That's in conversation, the person you're conversing with ought to be related to, conversed with on the basis of what weight they carry in authority. In other words, you don't talk to a 4-year-old on the same level you talk to a 65-year-old person who has walked through the fires and has the wisdom of God and whatever. You just don't. I may say to Sam, who's 4 years old, "Hey, buddy, come over here. Yeah, hi." But if I'm talking to some saint of God who's walked through the fire and who's paid the price, I'm not going to talk to him that way. But when you're talking to someone, anyone, measure them, measure their weight, the weight of glory, the weight of that they carry. Who are you talking to? The governor walks in there, whether you're Republican or Democrat, the governor walks in here, you're not going to go, "Hey, buddy." No, it's governor. You talk to him on the basis of who he is, what weight he carries. Recently I had the privilege of being in a meeting where there were several pretty high-level politicians and whatever. And it was an informal deal. Actually it was a hunt, just to tell you. I don't believe in killing. I don't believe in killing things, but I actually do believe in killing some things. And so anyway, we were there, and each one of them said, "Don't call me senator, or don't call me this. Just call me by my first name." I had a hard time. I had a hard time sitting down and calling them by the first name. So, if we carry that over to God, then yes, He's Almighty God. He said to call Him Father. You have that permission. I want you to know that's a privilege. He basically said, "You can call me Father," and I like that. We'll talk about that next week. And then let me ask you this, just briefly. Got a few minutes. What are conversation killers for you? I've mentioned several. What are conversation killers for you? Just as you converse with people or whatever, what kills a conversation? Interruptions? Yeah. Interruptions that they could avoid but don't? Yeah. Yes. No response. That's true. Talk to somebody and there's just no response. Just look at you dead on. It's like, "Oh, yeah. By the way, I'm communicating with y'all. A little response would be helpful." Yeah. Time? Rush time. Yeah. Looking at your watch and it's like, yeah, that's good. That's good. I got to go. That's true. Yes, sir. lack of concentration on their part. They're not paying attention. Yeah, I say, what? You tell them some great thought, and then they go, hey, what do you think about this? And you say, I just told you. Yeah. What else? Yeah, Susan? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that'll kill one. That'll kill a whole relationship, you know. You pour your heart out, this is really important, and they go, oh, yeah, and move on to what they think's important. Yeah, absolutely. All the way in the back? Yeah. Yeah. Always about them, talking about themselves, like, okay, I've spent the last 20 minutes talking about me. Now you talk about me for a while. Let's share this conversation. That's what? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's hard not to get over, isn't it? I have to confess I do that sometimes. It's not I'm trying to one up. It's just that you tell me a story. It's like, yeah, I got one like that too. You know, like Kenny Thacker says that he had an uncle, or I think his grandpa, who said, yeah, people like that, no matter what you tell them, if you tell them you've been to the moon, they've already hoed corn on it. You kind of got to be rural to get that one, yeah. Listening, yeah. Yeah. I thought it was interesting, the lady that was just elected, the youngest member to Congress, I can't pronounce her name. They were interviewing her, and they said, well, you know, what's the best advice you got? And she said, somebody, I don't know who it was, said to her, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. In your conversation, use them appropriately. Yeah, in a conversation, listen twice as much as you talk. And then you'll give room for some silence in there. Anybody besides me getting to where you appreciate silence more than ever? I mean, that's good because I'm going deaf, but I mean, I just like silence. I got all kind of mechanisms in my vehicle to listen to music and whatever. I'm just telling you, most of the time I don't. I just love the silence. Anyway, somebody else got some? Anyway, take those that you see as conversation killers with each other and say, you know, that could be killing my conversation with God. It's not that God is offended so much and all that kind of stuff. Is that you're hurting your own conversation. So learning to be a better conversationalist will make you a better prayer. And so when you have special times or when you do it along the way, you'll be better. Okay. Did you get anything tonight that was helpful to you? All right. Next week, same time, same place. Okay, I'm going to use a rule phrase for you and see how many of you get it. This meeting has already been saucered and blowed. How many of you got it? The rest of you, I don't know how to explain it to you. You pour your coffee into your saucer, you blow it, and it's ready to go. You want to say anything to it? All right, let me pray for you. Y'all be quiet. I'm talking to the Lord. Father, we love you and thank you for the time together. We really do want to become better conversationalists with you. Thank you for the privilege of living with you, doing life with you, talking with you, hearing from you, partnering with you. We do really want to get better at it. Help us in Jesus' name. Amen.